William, you must be careful. They are manipulating the throne, and you are their target. This wasn't a prophecy. It was Princess Diana's final warning written in trembling blue ink addressed to her son, just before she vanished forever in a crash that shook the world. A letter never delivered, a secret red notebook listing those who had conspired to control the throne, and a conspiracy buried beneath the ashes of Paris, 1997. But why did that letter disappear from the crash site? Who took it, and why was it hidden for 7 long years? And what happens when William, now a man, a father, and an heir, finally holds it in his hands? When a mother dies, her voice doesn't fade. It waits quietly, patiently for the day her son is ready to hear the truth. In July 2004, the musty air of SES Auction House in London hung heavy as if time itself had stalled within its grey stone walls. Rickety wooden shelves coated in thick dust groaned under the weight of forgotten family documents, relics of centuries past whispering secrets no one dared to hear. Emma Carter, a 24-year-old inventory clerk, sifted through brittle pages, her eyes bleary after a grueling 12-hour shift. Her brown hair was a tangled mess, damp with sweat, but she pressed on as if this tedious work could drown out her own troubles, a broken romance and mounting bills. In a dim corner where a flickering fluorescent bulb barely pierced the shadows, Emma's hand brushed against a small wooden box, wedged tightly behind a towering stack of files. With a tug, it came free with a sharp clack, sending a cloud of dust into the air that left her coughing. The faded label on the box was barely legible, scrawled in looping ink, Diana Spencer, handwritten letters. Emma's heart skipped a beat. Diana Spencer, Princess Diana, the people's princess whose compassion and tragedy had captivated the world. She shook her head, dismissing the thought as wishful thinking, but curiosity won out. With trembling hands, she lifted the lid, feeling as if she were opening a portal to the past. Inside lay fragile, yellowed pages, so delicate they seemed ready to crumble under the faint light. The handwriting was graceful, flowing like a gentle river, each stroke carrying the weight of a heart that had loved fiercely. Every letter ended with a simple D, sometimes adorned with a tiny heart in blue ink, a tender reminder of enduring love. Emma skimmed a few lines, then froze at the final letter, addressed boldly at the top to W. This was no ordinary note, no polite thank you or casual scribble. Its words were haunting, like a cry from the grave. William, you must be careful. They are manipulating the throne, and you are their target. I've written it all in the red notebook. Find it before they do. The final line, written in a shaky hand, sent a chill down Emma's spine. You are my light even when darkness surrounds us. Don't let them extinguish it. Emma's heart pounded, her breath coming in shallow gasps. This was Diana's letter to Prince William. But who were they? What secrets did the red notebook hold? And why had this letter been hidden in a dusty archive, as if someone had buried it to keep it from ever seeing the light of day? She stood frozen, her eyes glued to the words drawn into a story far bigger and far more dangerous than she could have imagined. This wasn't just a letter, it was a plea, a warning, and perhaps the key to a shocking secret. Clutching the box, Emma hurried to the office of her manager, Harold Grayson, a stern man in his 50s with silver hair and eyes sharp as a blade. Harold scanned the letter beads of sweat forming on his brow, despite the chilly room. His lips tightened, his hands trembling as he turned the pages. "This is none of our business," he muttered, his voice unsteady, but his eyes betrayed panic, as if he'd just touched an unexploded bomb. He barked orders to lock the box in the safe, his voice rising to a near shout. "Don't breathe a word of this, Emma." "Understood." Emma nodded, but her heart raced. Why was Harold so terrified? What did he know about this letter? Or worse, what was he hiding? Meanwhile, at St. Andrews, where Prince William was studying, a mysterious courier appeared at his dorm on a rain-soaked evening. No name, no address, just a sodden white envelope with a scrawled message in black ink. You should read it before they do. William, just 22, sat alone in his small room, the glow of a lamp casting shadows across his face, a face both youthful and etched with a deep, unspoken sorrow, the kind carried by someone who lost his mother at 15. His hands shook as he opened the envelope, sensing something life-altering inside. There it was, the original letter in his mother's unmistakable hand, the blue ink faded, but the words cut like a knife. As he read, a chilling truth hit him. His mother wasn't just a victim of the press or the palace. She had uncovered a dangerous conspiracy targeting him, a plot to control the future king. Memories of his mother flooded back, lazy afternoons in the park, bedtime stories, her warm hugs as she whispered, "You are my everything." But now those memories took on a darker hue tinged with danger. Questions gnawed at him. Where was the red notebook? Who sent this letter? And why now, 7 years later? William gripped the paper, his eyes steely, but his heart breaking. He knew his life would never be the same. This letter wasn't just a keepsake of a mother's love. It was a key to a secret that could shake the monarchy, and he was the only one who could uncover the truth. In 1989, Kensington Palace glittered with crystal chandeliers and echoed with laughter at Prince William's 7th birthday party. Aristocratic guests in dazzling attire toasted the future king, while royal advisors lurked in the corners, their cold eyes noting every detail. But far from the pomp, Diana, in a simple emerald dress, knelt beside her son, helping him blow out the candles on a motorcycle-shaped cake, a gift she'd chosen herself despite the palace's objections that it was too common for a prince. William beamed, his summer sky eyes sparkling with joy, oblivious to the watchful gazes. Harry, just 5, bounced nearby, vying for attention, making Diana laugh, a rare, genuine smile in the artificial world of the royals. After the guests departed, the palace fell into an eerie silence, like a fortress guarding unspeakable secrets. Diana took William and Harry's hands and led them to the back courtyard, her eyes alight with excitement. A surprise awaited the royal escort motorcycle team. At her secret request, roared into the night engines, thundering as they performed daring stunts. William whooped, clapping wildly, his face flushed with thrill. "Mummy, this is amazing!" he shouted, throwing his arms around her. She hugged him tightly, smiling, but a shadow crossed her eyes as if she glimpsed a future he couldn't yet fathom. She knew these carefree moments were precious ones she had to shield, not just from royal protocol, but from a hidden force watching her from the darkness. A force she was beginning to suspect, but dared not name. That night in her private quarters, Diana sat at her desk, a flickering candle casting strange shapes on the cold stone walls like omens whispering of danger. She penned a polite thank you note to the motorcycle team, ever the poised princess, but her hand paused, her gaze drifting into the void. Taking a fresh sheet, she began a letter to William, as if he were old enough to grasp the weight of her heart. "My darling boy, seeing you smile today was all I needed. But I fear one day you'll be drawn into a dangerous game where the crown is a trap. Always trust your heart." She folded the letter, her hands trembling, and tucked it into a wooden box under her bed, where dozens of unsent letters waited, whispers locked away. This time she added a note in red ink. "If I'm gone, find the red notebook." Diana fought to keep William and Harry grounded, defying the palace's rigid rules. She took them to Hyde Park, where William slid down slides with a cleaner's son, laughing without a care. She queued at McDonald's, letting them jostle with other kids over fries and soda. These moments were her antidote to the monarchy's chill, her way of planting compassion and freedom in her sons. But Charles, her husband, was furious. In a heated argument in Kensington's drawing room, he thundered, "You're turning them into commoners. Do you want to destroy the monarchy's foundation?" Diana stayed silent, her eyes resolute but her heart aching. She retreated to her room, opened her diary, and wrote with fierce determination, "If they don't learn to love others, they'll never be true kings." Deep down, she feared not just Charles, but the palace advisors, those who appeared whenever she mentioned sensitive matters, like secret funds draining from royal coffers or hushed meetings she'd overheard. She began documenting her suspicions in a red notebook hidden in her room, a weapon to protect her sons. Every smile from William, every hug from Harry, was a treasure she guarded against the monarchy's harsh rules and the shadows stalking her. But Diana knew her fight wasn't just against protocol, or Charles. A darker, more powerful force was manipulating the palace from within, and she was determined to leave clues for William should she no longer be there to shield him. From the moment William's first cry echoed in 1982, Diana waged war on the suffocating rules of the British monarchy. When palace officials demanded a fitting name for the heir, something regal like Edward or George, Diana quietly but firmly chose William. Not for its royal pedigree, but for its simplicity, its humanity, a promise that her son would be more than a symbol of the crown. The advisors whispered behind heavy oak doors. She doesn't know what she's doing, but Diana knew exactly. She was planting seeds for a quiet revolution, a battle to keep her son's heart from being crushed by the weight of the crown. Unlike past princesses, Diana refused to let nannies raise William around the clock. Each night in a cozy room at Kensington Palace, she cradled him, whispering tales of knights protecting the weak, stories she invented not found in royal textbooks to instill kindness. Her eyes glowed as William giggled, but her heart was heavy. She knew the world outside was waiting to mold her son into a puppet of the crown, and a shadowy group within the palace was already plotting to control him, even as a child. When William turned 3, Diana stunned the palace again. Instead of enrolling him in a prestigious boarding school as royal tradition dictated, she took his hand and walked him to a local nursery near Kensington. The sight of Princess Diana in a modest coat queuing with other mothers to register her son sent shockwaves through the royal establishment. Advisors called it a betrayal of protocol. A senior aide, his voice icy, warned, "Your Highness, this undermines the throne's prestige." Diana smiled, her eyes sharp as steel. "I'm not raising my son to be a symbol. I'm raising him to be human." But her defiance sparked a covert war. A German nanny, Frau Helga Braun, assigned by the palace to oversee William and Harry, began documenting Diana's every move. From the hours she spent playing with her sons to the bedtime stories she told, nothing escaped the nanny's black notebook. One night, Diana opened Braun's desk drawer and found a chilling list, times she sang William to sleep, moments she hugged him, even private words like, "I'll always protect you." Rage and fear surged through her. "I'm their mother," she shouted, her voice trembling with anger and dread, confronting the nanny. Braun bowed, her eyes cold, saying nothing. The next morning, Diana fired her, ignoring a royal advisor's threat. "You're digging your own grave, Your Highness." Yet it wasn't just the palace whispers that haunted Diana. It was the paparazzi's cameras. They were everywhere: parks, schools, friends' homes, like relentless phantoms. They knew her and her son's schedules precisely as if someone inside the palace was feeding them information. One afternoon at Hyde Park, as William played on a slide, a photographer lunged forward, shoving a lens in his face. The 3-year-old sobbed, his tiny hands shielding his eyes. Diana rushed to him, holding him close, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, my boy. I'll protect you," she whispered, her voice breaking. But she knew that promise was growing harder to keep. She began to suspect the paparazzi weren't acting alone, that they were pawns of a greater force, perhaps the advisors whose names she'd written in her red notebook. That night in her darkened Kensington room, Diana sat at her desk, a candle's flicker illuminating her pale face and red-rimmed eyes. She wrote an unsent letter, a release of fear and a vow to protect her son William. "I fear you'll be swept into the palace's world, where they'll try to make you forget love and what I've taught you. If that happens, I'll have failed. I'll fight to keep you true to yourself no matter the cost." She added a final line in red ink. "If I'm gone, find the red notebook. It holds the truth about those who want to control you." The letter joined the red notebook in the wooden box under her bed, where she kept the names of palace advisors and shady financial dealings she'd stumbled upon in royal documents. Diana's fears weren't baseless. She began distrusting everyone's staff, even close allies. Each night she checked William and Harry's rooms for listening devices. Once inside Harry's favorite brown teddy bear, she found a tiny microphone emitting a faint buzz. She smashed it with her heel, tears streaming down her face, her heart torn apart. "They won't leave us alone," she wrote in her diary, her handwriting jagged as if trying to tear through the page. She sensed an invisible force larger than the palace, not just watching, but plotting to control William's future. The heir they saw as a pawn in their game. She knew her battle to protect her sons was just beginning, and the red notebook was her only weapon. In 1996, as the final shards of Diana and Charles's marriage shattered, the world watched with a mix of curiosity and sorrow. Headlines screamed of their divorce, from tawdry tabloids to sober BBC reports, each word carving deeper into Diana's heart. But the deepest wound wasn't public judgment. It was the moment she was stripped of her Royal Highness title. That title, though just words, was her tether to her sons in the monarchy's harsh world. Now it was erased, as if the palace sought to wipe her from history reducing her to a nameless shadow. In a private room at Kensington Palace, Diana sat curled by the fireplace, its feeble glow highlighting her pale, tear-streaked face. The crackle of burning logs was the only sound in the icy silence, a faint comfort against the loneliness gnawing at her. Outside, the world was divided. Some called her a victim of a cruel system. Others whispered she was a wrecking ball, daring to challenge the throne. But Diana cared little for the gossip. Her greatest pain was William's expression when he learned his mother was no longer Her Royal Highness, the angry, helpless look of a 14-year-old boy. William entered quietly, his eyes heavy with worry. He stood at the threshold, fists clenched as if holding back emotions too big for a teenager. The firelight danced across his face, revealing a youthful yet sorrowful depth, a grief he couldn't yet name. "Mum, why did they do this to you?" he asked, his voice catching each word, fighting through an invisible barrier. Diana looked up, offering a faint smile to mask the agony tearing her apart. "Because I didn't play their game, my boy," she said softly but firmly, a testament to her unapologetic truth. William crossed the room, sitting beside her, taking her hand. His touch was warm, but she felt the tremor in it, as if he were grasping something slipping away. They sat in silence, the fire flickering between them, a silent witness to this sacred moment. Then, unable to bear the injustice any longer, William looked up, his eyes blazing with a rare resolve. "Don't be sad, Mum," he said, his voice steady as a vow. "When I'm king, I'll give it all back to you." Those words, though childlike, pierced Diana's heart like a blade. She pulled him close, tears soaking his blonde hair. She knew her son was caught in a brutal divide, duty to the crown on one side, boundless love for her on the other. And she feared the palace insiders, those named in her red notebook, were scheming to mold him into their puppet, manipulating him for their own gain. That night, after William slept, Diana returned to her desk, the candles glow, casting a faint light in the still room. She wrote a new letter marked, "Only open when I'm gone." In it, she poured out her soul as if it were her last chance to guide her son. "William, they'll force you to choose between your heart and the crown. They want to make you their tool to control the throne for their own ends. The red notebook holds the truth. Find it and protect yourself." She folded it carefully, tucking it into the wooden box with a slip of paper, noting the red notebook's secret location, a hidden safe in the home of her trusted butler, Paul Burrell. Diana stared at the box, her eyes both fierce and despairing. She knew her time was running out, and each word was a brick laid for her son's future. On November 20th, 1995, the world held its breath as Diana appeared on BBC's Panorama with Martin Bashir. This was no polished princess in a glittering gown crafted by royal sheen. On screen, Diana was raw, vulnerable, no heavy makeup, no hiding the cracks in her soul. Her eyes carried pain, but burned with an unquenchable fire, the fire of truth. Millions watched, hearts breaking, as she spoke of loneliness in her marriage, betrayal by the man she loved, and the eating disorder that gnawed at her in the palace's gilded cage. But it was her words about William and Harry that shattered viewers. Her voice trembled, yet each word carried a mother's fierce resolve. "I want my boys to know love, to feel," she said, her eyes alight like a beacon in the dark. "I don't want them growing up in a golden cage, their hearts locked away. I want them to know the crown isn't everything." She deliberately avoided mentioning the conspiracy she'd uncovered, a plan by palace advisors to manipulate William, fearing it would endanger her sons. Instead, she wove her words as a coded message, hoping William would sense she was fighting for him in her own way. The interview ended, but the storm was just beginning. Within hours, Buckingham Palace became a fortress of chaos. Advisors' faces ashen darted through cold stone corridors, whispering in panic, "She's gone too far." Some named in Diana's red notebook feared she knew too much, and this interview was her first step toward exposing them. A summons stamped with the Queen's red seal, a rare sign of royal fury, arrived for Diana. In a closed room at Buckingham, the Queen, her voice like ice, demanded Diana and Charles divorce immediately. No negotiation, no explanation. The verdict was final. Diana had to go, and go quietly. The fallout was swift and brutal. Diana lost her high-level security access to parts of Kensington Palace and the privileges tied to her role. Advisors smirked behind her back. "She's destroyed herself." But Diana stood unbowed. In her diary, she wrote with sharp clarity, "I spoke the truth, and the truth will protect my boys." She secretly entrusted the red notebook to Paul Burrell, instructing him to give it to William only if she were in danger, ensuring the truth would reach her son, even if she were gone. For her, the interview wasn't just a confession, it was a warning, a final bid to shield William and Harry from the fate she'd endured. Before leaving Kensington Palace for the last time, as the Prince of Wales's wife Diana called William to her room. The small space with its faded floral wallpaper held their warmest memories, story nights, hugs, laughter no one could steal. William entered, his teenage eyes confused, grappling with the adult world. Diana's heart clenched as she looked at him. She knew her time with him was dwindling, and what she left behind had to be strong enough to guide him. She handed him a small wooden box, its intricate floral carvings worn by time. "You don't need to read it all now," she said, her voice soft as a breeze, but her eyes gentle yet firm, passing him her strength. "Open it when you start to doubt yourself." William nodded, clutching the box, his eyes betraying confusion. He didn't grasp the full weight of her words, unaware the box held her letters, pieces of her soul and clues to the red notebook, a document that could expose a plot to control the throne. He only knew her gaze felt like a goodbye, and it weighed heavily on his heart. As William left, Diana stood by the window, watching his figure fade down the corridor. A cold draft slipped through the window's crack, like a harbinger of what was coming. She didn't know that the box and the letters within would become a torch to light William's path, guiding him to the truth about his mother and the forces that tried to silence her. In August 1997, Diana lived in an invisible cage, every step scrutinized, every breath threatened. Fear clung to her like a shadow, seeping into her dreams, her moments of fleeting joy. She believed she was being watched not just by the ever-present paparazzi, but by a deeper, more sinister force lurking behind the palace's stone walls. In a hurried note to Paul Burrell, her trusted butler, she wrote with a trembling hand, each word carved from desperation, "I feel danger coming, like someone wants me in an accident. And I think no one will be punished." Her trip to Paris with Dodi Fayed was a bid for happiness, a reminder that she could still find joy, however brief. Paris, with its glowing streets and free air, was a refuge where she hoped to escape the shadows. But even there, she felt unseen eyes, silent footsteps trailing her, as if her fate was sealed. From her hotel window, she spotted strange cars at street corners, men in caps hiding their faces. She knew those behind her red notebook would stop at nothing if she dug deeper. On the night of August 30, in the opulent Ritz suite, Diana sat alone, the golden lamplight highlighting the weary lines around her eyes. No glamorous gown, no perfect princess smile, just a woman facing her truths, her broken hopes, her unfulfilled dreams. On the table lay a blank sheet, a blue ink pen, and a small leather clutch. With shaking hands, she began her final letter to William, as if instinct told her time was nearly gone. She wrote of hope, love, and the man she wanted him to become. Each line was a piece of her soul, a message transcending life and death. "My darling boy, I've fought for your freedom, for you to love and live true to yourself. But I've uncovered their plan to control the throne, to make you their puppet. The red notebook is with Paul. Find it and expose the truth." Her final words in a faltering hand, "You are my hope, William. Live for what you believe, not what they want you to be." She folded the letter, tucked it into the clutch with a note of the safe's code, where Paul kept the red notebook, and wiped her tears with a hotel napkin, leaving faint mascara streaks. A waiter lingering outside later recalled with regret, "I heard soft sobs from her room. She seemed to be saying goodbye, but I didn't dare knock." At that moment, Diana seemed to sense death approaching, yet she didn't flee. She stood, smoothed her hair, and stepped into the night, carrying her letter and her heart into the darkness. Early on August 31st, the Mercedes carrying Diana and Dodi crashed in the Alma Tunnel at terrifying speed. The screech of metal echoed like a fatal symphony tearing through Paris's night. The accident stole Diana's life, leaving the world in shock and grief. Her charred clutch was found amid the wreckage, alone among the debris. But the letter, her final words to William, had vanished. A rescuer reported a strange man in a black coat at the scene, slipping a small item from the rubble before police sealed the area. No one knew who he was, but rumors swirled. The letter was taken deliberately to bury the secret Diana meant to reveal. The truth, like the letter, was swallowed by darkness, leaving only unanswered questions. Diana was gone, but her legacy and the secret of the red notebook waited to be uncovered, a faint ember ready to spark into a blaze. 7 years later, on a rainy July evening in 2004, Prince William sat alone in his modest St. Andrew's dorm room. The lamplight cast a warm glow on his face, revealing a youthful yet sorrowful depth, the grief of a boy who lost his mother at 15, now bearing the crown's weight. Rain tapped the window, stirring memories he'd tried to bury: park playtimes, bedtime tales, his mother's warm embraces. A soft knock broke the silence. William opened the door to find no one, just a soaked white envelope on the steps scrawled with black ink. She wrote it. "They buried it, but you're still her son." His heart raced as he picked it up, sensing a seismic shift. Inside was a copy of his mother's final letter, her familiar script. The blue ink faded, yet each word danced vividly as if she stood before him, whispering her last truths. He read, stunned to learn she'd uncovered a chilling plot. A group of palace advisors tied to illicit financial deals planned to manipulate him, the heir, for their own ends. The red notebook she wrote held their names and proof of their crimes. "Find it and expose the truth," she urged, her words igniting a fire in his soul. Tears streamed down William's face, smudging the ink. Memories surged like a storm: Hyde Park afternoons, running free with other kids. Nights by his bedside, her tales of brave nights, her tight hugs whispering, "You're my everything," her eyes tender yet fierce, as if she knew her time was short. The letter was a final reminder he wasn't just the heir to the throne, he was Diana's son, the woman who defied a system to protect him, leaving the red notebook as his ultimate weapon. William gripped the paper, his eyes resolute, but his heart shattered. Who sent this letter? Why now, after 7 years, like a warning from the past? The envelope's words, "They buried it," echoed in his mind. Who were they? The ones who hid the letter, or those tied to his mother's death? The questions weighed on him, but deep down, William knew this letter was more than a mother's love. It was a call to action, a flame Diana lit to guide him through the dark, and he would find the red notebook, even if it cost him the throne. Months later, on a frigid winter day, William stood before a crowd at a charity event speaking on homelessness aid. In a sharp black suit, he carried a prince's poise, but his voice held a rare sincerity, each word carved from his heart. "We're not born to stand above others," he said, his eyes tinged with deep sorrow as if gazing into the past. "We're born to understand them." The crowd erupted in applause. The press hailed his compassion, dubbing him the Prince of Kindness. But his words were more than a speech. They were a veiled challenge to the palace insiders, those named in the red notebook he vowed to find. William was signaling he would carry his mother's legacy, and no one could stop him from uncovering the truth. At Balmoral, Camilla watched the speech on a screen, her breath catching. She saw it, the values Diana instilled in William were unshakable. More than that, she sensed danger. William might be nearing a secret the palace had buried for 7 years. His words echoed Diana's letters, her candlelit nights of writing her hugs and prayers for her son's heart. The flame Diana kindled burned brighter than ever in the heir to the throne, ready to blaze into a fire that could expose the conspiracy and perhaps the mystery of her death. Diana's legacy and the secret of the red notebook lived on in William, a promise that the truth would never stay buried. He stood tall, eyes unwavering, ready to face the palace and the world, to honor the fight his mother waged for him.